Okay, so let's set a scene. It's, what, 5:30 in the morning? The alarm is just screaming into the darkness.
Ugh, yeah, that sounds.
You drag yourself out of bed. You're fueled by, I don't know, coffee and sheer determination, right? Just to beat the traffic and be at your desk by 8:00 a.m.?
And you're diligent. You work hard. You stay late. 6:00 p.m. is, a good day.
A good day, exactly. Sometimes it's 9:00 p.m. if there's a big project.
Yeah.
And you've done this for a decade, maybe two. You've sacrificed weekends, missed family dinners.
You've done everything that society told you was the right thing to do. Extreme diligence, commitment, sacrifice. You've followed the fundamental promise, effort equals reward.
But then you look at your bank account and the reality just hits you.
The numbers don't add up.
They don't. The savings haven't really grown. You've got this credit card debt that just seems to reappear no matter how much you pay it down, the mortgage, the car loans. You're just running on this financial hamster wheel.
And you're working harder than ever, but you're not actually getting ahead. There's no clear path out of this cycle.
Exactly. And that tension, that's the core of what we're getting into in this deep dive. It's the paradox of hard work. Why is it that millions of people work exponentially harder than the wealthy, but stay stuck? Why isn't diligence enough?
Well, this is where we have to stop looking outside at the economy, the government, bad luck, and start looking inward.
Right.
Because the deep dive we're doing today reveals this hidden reason, this silent partner in your financial life that's controlling everything. It's what we call the money blueprint.
The money blueprint. And we're going to be dissecting the core insights from a really powerful analysis of these beliefs, focusing on what we're calling the 6 money myths you must know now.
Yeah, these myths are like faulty programming. They were installed a long, long time ago, and they're still running your entire financial operating system today.
So our mission here is to identify that faulty code, to find the brakes you're pressing while you're also flooring the gas pedal.
So you can finally rewrite that blueprint and achieve the financial independence you've been working so incredibly hard for.
Okay, so let's start right at the foundation. The money blueprint. Where does this programming even come from?
It's fascinating because it's not a conscious choice. It's an involuntary program that was installed when you were a child. Think of your brain like a computer, and its financial operating system was basically written by, a 7-year-old.
Written by your childhood experiences.
Exactly. Your parents' reactions to bills, the phrases you heard over and over at the dinner table, things like, money is hard to find, or we can't afford that.
Or the big moral ones, right? Rich people are selfish.
Yes. Or we're poor, but we're happy. All those messages, those emotions, they create the unconscious code. They form your blueprint.
And the result of that faulty code, decades later, is self-sabotage. And you don't even realize you're doing it.
That's the insidious part. If your blueprint, deep down, tells you that money is dangerous or that you don't deserve wealth, what you think happens when a large amount of it actually comes your way?
You get rid of it.
You are psychologically compelled to destroy it. You'll overspend, make a bad investment, maybe lend it to someone who will never pay it back. You'll do something to bring your reality back in line with your internal comfort zone.
So that explains things like lottery winners who go broke in a few years.
It's the perfect example. Their external reality changed overnight, but their internal blueprint, their financial thermostat, was still set to struggle. So their subconscious mind just worked overtime to get them back to that familiar temperature.
I have to push back a little here, though. Are we saying that things like poverty are just a psychological problem? What about real structural economic issues?
That's a critical question. And no, we are absolutely not dismissing the structural challenges. They are very real. But what this analysis shows is that while external factors might determine your starting line,
your internal blueprint determines your long-term trajectory.
Exactly. Take two people who face the same external event, like a layoff. The person with a scarcity blueprint sees it as proof that money is hard to come by and gets paralyzed by fear. But the person with a growth-oriented blueprint sees it as a setback, sure, but they immediately start networking, learning a new skill, looking for a better opportunity. Same event, totally different internal response.
And a totally different long-term outcome. I see the connection now. The blueprint is the lens through which you see the world.
Which brings us back to that core analogy we started with. The reason your hard work isn't paying off, you're in your car, you're hitting the gas pedal, that's your diligence, your long hours.
Right, flooring it.
But your subconscious fear, your money blueprint, is simultaneously slamming on the brakes. You're burning fuel, you hear the engine screaming, but you're barely moving.
And for years, people blame the car, or the steepness of the hill.
They blame the economy, the government, bad luck, anything but the foot that's on the brake. Because it's comforting to point outward. It relieves you of the responsibility for the result.
But the truth is, the chain holding you back is internal. And until you identify that blueprint, no amount of hard work is going to break it. You have to change the code.
Let's get into the first piece of that faulty code, the first myth.
Okay, let's do it. Myth number 1, and this one is huge. It's the belief that more income equals more happiness and more security. We've all thought this, right? If I could just make 6 figures, or if I just got a $15,000 raise, everything would be okay.
That number becomes a finish line in your mind, but it's a moving target. And the source material has this perfect story to illustrate it, the story of O.
O's story is so relatable. He starts his career, let's say he's making, what, $45,000 a year.
A modest starting salary.
And he's thinking, man, if I could just get to $75,000, I'd be comfortable. I could finally start saving. So he works hard, gets promoted, and he hits $75K.
And what's the first thing that happens?
The moment the money lands, his brain goes, okay, I deserve an upgrade. A slightly nicer car, maybe a bigger apartment in a cooler neighborhood. He starts eating out more.
And suddenly, that $75,000 lifestyle feels just as tight, maybe even tighter than the $45,000 one did.
So he sets a new goal. Okay, 120,000. That's the real number.
And a few years later, he gets there. But now he's got kids, so he needs a bigger house in a good school district. He needs a second car. His expenses haven't just grown, they've exploded.
So now he's aiming for 180,000, convinced that that is the number that will finally solve all his problems.
The goalpost just keeps moving. He's running harder and harder, but the finish line is always 10 yards ahead. This whole cycle has a name.
This is lifestyle inflation.
Or lifestyle creep. It's this phenomenon where your expenses grow just as fast and often faster than your income. And it's the single biggest reason why you see professionals earning $200,000 a year who are still living paycheck to paycheck, completely buried in debt.
They are high-income consumers, but they are absolutely not wealthy builders. And that right there, that's one of the most important distinctions in this whole deep dive. The difference between being rich and being wealthy.
It's a powerful separation because most people are chasing the wrong thing. Let's define it. The rich are defined by high circulating cash flow. They have the expensive brands, the least luxury cars, the big flashy house.
It's all about the outward display.
Exactly. And crucially, they work for money. They trade their time for that high income, but their actual bank reserves, their liquid savings, might be shockingly low. They're often one missed paycheck away from a major crisis.
So they look successful, but their foundation is shaky.
Very shaky. Now compare that to the wealthy. The wealthy define themselves by their time and their assets. They own things that produce income, stocks, real estate, businesses that generate cash flow whether they show up to work or not.
They make money work for them.
Precisely. They value security and freedom over any outward display. They might be driving a 5-year-old Honda, but their financial foundation is rock solid because their assets are feeding them.
So the person driving that 5-year-old sedan, who owns 2 rental properties free and clear, that person is genuinely wealthier than the person of the brand new leased BMW with maxed out credit cards.
1,000%. One is buying assets that appreciate. The other is buying liabilities that depreciate. And this connects directly to that classic Warren Buffett quote. If you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need.
Wow, that really lands. Every time you engage in lifestyle inflation, you're literally trading your future freedom for a temporary hit of status today.
And psychologically, the whole chase is designed to fail anyway. It's because of a concept called the hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill. I've heard this term, and it's terrifyingly accurate. Break that down for us.
So the hedonic treadmill explains our psychological adaptation. When you get something new, a new car, a new phone, you get this huge dopamine hit. It's exciting.
Right, that initial rush.
But our brains are wired to adapt. Within weeks, sometimes even days, that new thing just becomes the new normal. The excitement fades. The new car is just the car.
The baseline just resets.
The baseline resets. And to get that rush again, you have to chase the next bigger, better thing, the newer model, the bigger house. You're running faster and faster on this treadmill just to stay in the same emotional place.
So no matter how high O's income gets, if he keeps spending it all, his actual long-term happiness doesn't really increase.
The research on this is crystal clear. Once your income covers your basic needs, food, shelter, Some savings, earning more money doesn't significantly increase your life satisfaction if you just keep channeling it into more consumption. True satisfaction comes from using money to buy back your time.
Okay, so that distinction between the rich and the wealthy, between consumption and building, it sets us up perfectly for the next myth.
It does, because a lot of people see the trap of lifestyle inflation and they swing to the complete opposite extreme.
Extreme conservatism. They think the safest thing they can do is just hoard cash. Put all their money in a savings account. It's the advice we all got growing up, right? Save your money in the bank. It's the safest place for it.
And it sounds so responsible, so prudent. It feels like the exact opposite of that reckless consumer. But it's probably the most insidious myth of all because it gives you a completely false sense of security.
So what's wrong with that? If the goal is just to be safe, what's the problem?
The problem is the invisible force that is mathematically guaranteed to destroy your capital over time, and that force is inflation.
The silent thief?
The silent thief. Works 2047 without ever announcing itself. It's the slow, steady increase in the cost of everything, which means the purchasing power of every dollar you have is constantly going down.
So if a gallon of milk cost $3 5 years ago, and today it's $4, the money you saved back then is worth less today.
Precisely. In the U.S., the average inflation rate over the long term is somewhere between, say, 2.5% to 5% a year, which means every single year you hold cash, you are guaranteed by design to lose that much of its real value.
Let's put a hard number on that. If you have, say, $100,000 sitting in a savings account right now, your safety net, if you just leave it there for 10 years with an average inflation of just 3%, that $100,000 will still say $100,000 on the statement. But its purchasing power, what it can actually buy, will be equivalent to only about $74,000 in today's money.
You lost $26,000 without spending a dime. Your only mistake was doing nothing.
But what about the interest the bank pays you? You put it in a high-yield savings account, you might get, what, 1.5% right now.
And that is the definition of a losing bet. If inflation is at 3% and your savings account is paying you 1.5%, you are mathematically guaranteed to lose 1.5% of your wealth every single year.
You're literally paying for the feeling of safety.
You're paying to get poorer, just slowly. The belief that saving cash keeps you safe is just demonstrably false once you do the math.
This forces us to completely redefine what risk even means. The common belief is that investing in the stock market is risky. But what you're saying is the biggest risk is actually doing nothing at all.
The safety of cash is an illusion. The best analogy is that you're in a boat that's slowly sinking.
Okay.
Inflation is the slow, steady leak. Is it safe to just sit there and do nothing? No, you're guaranteed to go down. The only rational choice is to start bailing water and moving forward, which means your money has to be invested in things that can grow faster than the rate of inflation.
This comes back to that Warren Buffett quote, risk comes from not knowing what you are doing.
That's it. If you're just gambling on some hot stock tip, yes, that is incredibly risky. But if you educate yourself, if you learn about index funds, diversification, asset allocation, you're not gambling. You are mitigating risks.
You're making informed decisions.
You're making informed decisions. And that is infinitely less risky than the guaranteed loss of holding cash. The people who say I'm too risk averse to invest are already taking the biggest, most certain risk there is. They've just chosen the path of a comfortable, predictable loss over time.
Okay, so once people accept that, once they realize they have to invest to beat inflation, the next big roadblock immediately pops up.
Yes. The next myth.
I don't have enough money to invest yet. Investing is for people with a big lump sum, $50,000, $100,000. I need to wait.
This one is just devastating. It's so destructive because it steals the single most valuable asset any investor has, which is time. This belief that I'll start later costs people fortunes.
Because they're missing out on the most powerful force in finance.
Compound interest, which Einstein supposedly called the eighth wonder of the world. And honestly, it really is.
So break down the mechanics. How does this snowball effect actually work?
It's beautifully simple. In year one, your money earns a return. Then, instead of taking that return out, you reinvest it. So in year two, your original money and the returns from year one are both earning returns.
So your money's babies start having babies.
Exactly. The snowball gets bigger, and the bigger it gets, the faster it grows. It's an exponential curve.
We can use the rule of 72 to illustrate that, right?
Yeah, that's a great shortcut. To estimate how long it takes for your money to double, you just divide 72 by your annual rate of return. If you're earning, say, 10% in the market, your money doubles about every 7.2 years.
Wow.
It shows you how that acceleration really starts to kick in.
Okay, let's use a really clear example. Let's say you invest just $100 a month. That's an achievable number for most people. And you do it for 30 years, and you get a pretty standard 10% annual return.
Okay, so over those 30 years, your total contribution, the money you personally put in, is $36,000.
Right.
But because of compounding, that money could grow to nearly $230,000. You made almost 200 grand just by being consistent and starting early.
The key insight there is that compounding relies on time way more than it relies on the amount of money you start with.
Absolutely. The person who starts small but early will almost always beat the person who starts big but late. Procrastination is the single most expensive financial mistake you can make.
The classic case study that proves this is the story of Ayum versus Chubb. Can you walk us through that?
I love this example because it defies intuition. So you have two investors, Ayum and Chubb. Let's say they both earn 10% a year.
Okay.
Ayum starts investing at age 25. She's very disciplined. She puts in $200 a month, but she only does it for 10 years. At age 35, she stops completely. She never adds another penny.
So her total contribution is $24,000, and then she just lets it sit there and grow until she's 65.
Correct. Now here comes Chubb. Chubb waits. He starts 10 years later at age 35. But he's consistent. He invests $200 a month for 30 straight years, all the way to age 65.
Okay, so Chubb's total contribution is $72,000. That's 3 times more money than Ayum put in. Logic says he should end up with way more.
And that logic would be completely wrong.
Yeah.
This is the magic. At age 65, Ayum, who only ever invested $24,000, she ends up with around $450,000.
Wow.
Chubb, who invested $72,000 over 3 decades, ends up with only about $400,000.
Wait, get that straight. Ayum put in $48,000 less cash, but she ended up $50,000 richer.
She wins. She wins because those first 10 years gave her money such a massive head start that Chubb could never catch up, even by investing for 30 years straight. That initial decade is when the snowball is rolling down the longest part of the hill.
That is definitive proof. Starting small is more important than starting big. It's about building the habit and just getting the clock started.
The single asset a young person has that the wealthiest person on earth would pay anything for is time. You look at someone like Warren Buffett. Over 90% of his fortune was made after his 50th birthday. Not because he got smarter, but because the compounding finally hit that steep part of the curve after decades of time in the market.
So the takeaway is don't wait. Start today, even if it's $50.
$50 is infinitely better than zero. Start the clock.
Okay, so we've covered the logical and mathematical myths. But now we have to get into maybe the deepest one of all. This is the moral objection to wealth.
The demon in the heart, as the source material calls it. This is the subconscious belief that holds so many good, ethical people back from ever building wealth.
And it's tricky because it's tied up in our values, our culture, our families. It's the fear that having money will make you a bad person.
There's a perfect anecdote that illustrates this. It's about this brilliant consultant who just kept sabotaging her own success.
Right. She was on the fast track. She was going to make a huge salary, but she would always find a way to mess it up right before a big promotion. She'd switch jobs or make a bad decision that would set her back.
And why? Because her childhood programming hammered into her that rich people are heartless or money is the root of all evil. She was terrified of becoming the very person she was taught to hate.
So she just plateaued. She made enough to be comfortable, but never enough to actually be wealthy or change her family's future. She stayed morally safe in her own mind.
It's a tragic self-imposed prison. And the only way out is to reframe what money actually is. Money is neutral.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's an amplifier. It doesn't have a moral compass. It simply magnifies the character of the person who holds it.
So if you're a kind and generous person and you get a lot of money, you can just do more kindness and generosity.
You can fund the animal shelter, start a foundation, pay for a relative's medical bills without a second thought. But if you're a greedy, selfish person and you get money, you can just do more harm.
So the idea that being poor makes you virtuous is a myth.
It's a narrative that provides comfort, but it's not true. The world desperately needs good-hearted, ethical people to become wealthy so they can apply those resources to positive change.
It's almost a moral obligation to pursue wealth if you're a good person.
That's the mindset shift. Stop seeing it as a selfish act and start seeing it as an act of stewardship. You look at examples like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or Warren Buffett pledging his fortune. They're using wealth to solve problems on a global scale.
The takeaway here is to stop feeling guilty about wanting to be financially secure. If you're a good person, you should strive to be wealthy because it gives you the power to have a much bigger positive impact on the world.
Exactly. And once you let go of that moral conflict, you release another one of those huge subconscious brakes. You align your financial goals with your personal values.
Okay, we have spent a lot of time breaking down the faulty code. Now we have to talk about how to actually rewrite it, the practical steps.
Right, the application. The most important thing to understand is that financial success is not a talent you're born with. It's a learnable skill. And like any skill, it starts with the right mindset.
And that is the growth mindset, this idea from psychologist Carol Dweck.
It's the fundamental belief that your abilities aren't fixed. You might feel bad with money right now, but that's a skill deficit you can fix. It's not a permanent personality trait.
So if you have a fixed mindset, you say, I'm just not a numbers person, and you give up.
And you guarantee failure. With a growth mindset, you say, I don't understand this yet, so I'm going to learn. That belief that you can learn is the first step.
So let's get concrete. 3 actions you can take, starting right now, to begin rewriting your blueprint.
Action item number 1. Start today, not tomorrow. We already talked about the insane cost of procrastination with compounding. The best day to start investing was 10 years ago. The second best day is today.
Right now.
Right now. Don't wait for the perfect moment or a big pile of cash. The goal is just to build the habit. Set up an automated transfer, even if it's just $50 a month, into a low-cost index fund. The consistency is 100 times more important than the amount at the beginning.
Action item number 2, continuous investment in knowledge. To quote Buffett again, risk is ignorance. You lower your risk by raising your knowledge. Read the classic books, listen to deep dives like this one. Spend 30 minutes a day learning about finance instead of scrolling social media. Knowledge builds confidence.
And action item number 3, cultivate a wealth circle. You have to be ruthless about who you spend your time with. If your circle is full of people who complain, who blame the system, who normalize being in debt, that mindset will rub off on you.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
It's so true. You have to actively seek out people who have a growth mindset, people who see opportunities, who talk about ideas, not just other people. You have to consciously raise your average.
And a final ingredient here has to be patience.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme.
Not at all. You didn't build your blueprint in a day, and you won't rewrite it in a day. It's a long game. There will be market downturns, there will be moments of doubt, but every dollar invested, every book read is a step in the right direction. You're not just working for a paycheck anymore. You're building a fortress.
A financial fortress. I like that.
So today we have, I think, done a pretty crucial deep dive into these hidden barriers. We've talked about the money blueprint, and we've exposed those 4 huge myths that keep people trapped.
The income fallacy that keeps you spending. The silent thief of inflation that eats your savings. The waiting game that wastes your most precious asset, time.
And the moral conflict that makes good people sabotage their own success.
And we've laid out the path to rewriting that script. It starts with a growth mindset, a commitment to start now, investing in knowledge and curating your circle.
Because financial success doesn't start in your bank account. It starts in your head. Once you change that internal programming, everything else follows. You are the architect.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to take away from this.
Since time is your most precious and irreplaceable asset, what is the one concrete, non-negotiable step you will take today to maximize its power through compounding and ensure you are working to build stable assets, not just lifestyle inflating expenses?
Think about that step. Make it small, make it immediate, and get it done. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. And if this changed how you think about money, please subscribe and share it with someone you know who's stuck in that hard work paradox.